The background scripture for this lesson comes from Acts and Ephesians. Paul is in prison. Acts, Paul is under house arrest. Ephesians, he is in a damp Roman prison. No matter what the situation, it was not pleasant. His freedom was restricted. Paul is engaged in a virtual ministry here, teaching these churches from a remote location. Christians are being persecuted, so Paul stresses the importance of spiritual tenacity, focusing on why they are better off as persecuted Christians than physically free unbelievers. Paul writes to be a sinner is to be spiritually dead, without true life, without a connection to God, without hope. Before coming to Christ, Paul's readers lived under the influence of a world in rebellion against God. Today we still falter, influenced by internal urges and by the world around us, selfish with moral failures and dishonesty. Our fight with sin is an ongoing battle. All of us have been driven by personal fleshly desires and thoughts. These internal personal itches arise seeking to be scratched during our weakest times. By our very nature, we deserve God's wrath. If left to our own, we are self-centered, lustful, vengeful, judgmental, and lack compassion for others unless there is an ulterior motive. The potential of God's wrath is necessary in the world to have justice. The potential of God's mercy is necessary in the world to have hope. Paul's theological rationale is infallible. He knew that life before Christ was one of being dead in our transgressions. But with Christ's resurrection, we are joined with him, saved. In a world then and now when these Christians were being called strange by those in power and mistreated, in essence, fighting societal oppression and their own internal urges. Paul clarifies, saying, God raised us with Jesus and seated us with Jesus in the heavenly places with Jesus. Paul is saying that this is an all or nothing commitment for Christians. We cannot be partial believers. As Christians, we are truly identified with Jesus Christ in his death, his resurrection, his ascension, and his present position in heaven. All of the blessings that we enjoy come from our identification with Jesus Christ. There is no salvation apart from Jesus. Paul asserts that our salvation is the first and foremost demonstration of the glory of God, demonstrating his eternal grace in his love of us through the sacrifice of his Son Jesus. This lesson teaches us that our salvation means that Jesus Christ has rescued us from God's wrath and judgment, righteous wrath and judgment. Our salvation, our rescue, is because of grace, the unmerited favor of God, nothing that we had earned. It is through faith alone that we receive grace. In essence, grace comes as a result of our hopes so strong that we are willing to conduct our lives in accordance with God, even though we cannot see or touch God. The grace of God is not a result of our good works. It cannot be claimed to be deserved by us. God alone gets the glory for grace. Grace is a gift from God. We are products of God's personal attention and handiwork. Why has he made us so carefully and so wonderfully? God will be glorified for all eternity for his grace towards men and women, because any good deed that results from our salvation is also a result of God's grace. For the good that each of us do comes from and is a result of the grace of God within us. That's the lesson for this week. Have a great week.